Hi, my name is Leandro Facchinetti, and let's write some code together, shall we? What we have on the menu today is GitHub Copilot. That is the name of the thing. So GitHub Copilot is this new project by GitHub. It is kind of an artificial intelligence that helps you write code. And I was curious about this, so I signed up for the beta. They are still in a technical preview. They are not releasing this to the public in general. And I signed up for the technical preview and I was invited. And then what we are going to do today is look at the invitation and try to install this thing and give it a try. It has been making some noise on the internet because it seems to work relatively well, but at the same time there are some people who are concerned about licenses and the legal implications of using code that was produced using this kind of tool. And we will try to make up of something about this space. Maybe we can try this on some artificial things that we kind of know how to control, and maybe we can go to the project that I'm working on the stream called Notestrator and see if Copilot can help us there. And I have been involved in research for a while in computer science, and I have been to some programming language conferences. And in one of the conferences, I remember watching a talk about this field called program synthesis. And in program synthesis, the task is that given a description, you are supposed to come up with synthesize a program. But this description is typically something I would say harder to write than an actual program. And I don't think it's something that you would use in day-to-day programming. Program synthesis, the research area, is more for things like avionics or, I don't know, banking, that kind of application that has a different level of, that needs a different level of security and performance. So the kinds of descriptions that you could come up with for these program synthesizers were for things like, at least in the demonstrations, they were for things like sorting an array, and you would have to describe using a very weird language how an array is sorted or what it means for an array to be sorted, and then the synthesizer would come up with something like a quicksort, an algorithm for sorting, and it would come up with that algorithm without having actually looked at implementations of quicksort before. That's all cool, but I don't think it's generally applicable, and the description language is complicated. It's very hard to express the idea of an array being sorted. You have to go into the mathematics of what it means to define this so-called invariance. And as far as I can tell, GitHub Copilot is nothing like that. It is a sort of program synthesizer, but it is more based on artificial intelligence. It has been trained on open source code on GitHub, and the kind of description that you give to Copilot is not mathematical and weird. It is just natural language. So yeah, let's dive into this and install GitHub Copilot. I have not even installed the thing. I haven't actually looked at it. Let's see how easy it is to actually install this. That part should be easy. And it seems like 100,000 people have already installed this. So maybe this technical preview is not open for everyone, but it's open for many people, most people. I don't know. Sign in to access the technical preview. And by the way, you who are watching this, what is something that you would like me to try? Maybe you have not have been invited to the technical preview yet, so is there something that you want me to try? And also, how do you feel about these concerns about security and licenses and the legal aspects of using this kind of tool? And do you think that this can be useful, or do you even think that it may replace human programmers? Myself, I don't think I would go that far. I think that these kinds of tools are an assistant at best, and you still need a human to communicate the intent and to fix whatever the tool comes up with. But I think it would be awesome if we could have higher level languages that are not the kinds of programming languages that we see today. They are, I mean, I am imagining things here, but I think that these languages would be more like natural language processing, and you could just talk to the computer and explain what you need, and the computer would come up with the low level code, and then maybe in the future, in the far, far future, I guess maybe 100 years from today, there will be no one who can actually speak languages like C and Java. Everyone will just speak on this higher level language and communicate with the computer that way, much in the same way that very few people these days know how a computer processor works. Very few people know all the instructions and the nitty-gritty of the processors. I mean, there's still a lot of people who know that, but not compared to the quantity of people who know languages like C and Java. So it seems like there is this guy over here, and that's a new icon, and when I click on that icon, nothing happens. Oh, I think that Copilot is on. Disabling Copilot. No. Enable it. Disabling. No, I guess it is enabled. Is it? I don't know. So let's try something simple. Let's go to some JavaScript file and say sort an array of objects by a given key. No. Sort an array. I was expecting that it would come up with some code to sort an array. Maybe if I have a variable. Okay, that's kind of neat. It's auto-completing with a sequence of numbers. Can it figure out something like Fibonacci, maybe? Okay, not that smart. If I start with the start of the Fibonacci sequence, can it figure that out? Nothing. But it seems to be enabled. So let's give it some numbers that are not sorted. What's going on now? It's trying to complete with random numbers? Whatever, I'll take the random numbers. Oh, didn't work that way. And then I have, it's suggesting another array. That doesn't really make sense. Open Copilot, synthesizing a bunch of solutions. Okay. Oh, it is, oh, okay, it has synthesized more solutions. So it seems to have tried to sort, maybe because it looked at my comment previously. So how about we do something else, like randomize the array. Okay, so now it's trying to suggest some lines. Okay, oh, how do I accept? I had to hit tab. And I think it got it right, because it is, I don't remember how the sort function works, but it's supposed to return a number, and I think that the number needs to be either 1 or -1. So if you sort with a random number, a random, I think, will give you a number between 0 and 1. So -half will give you a number between -half and half, which will be negative or positive, and will make the sort function be random. And this is kind of like the bread and butter of program synthesis. The idea that you can come up with simple array manipulation things. I mean, it's kind of smart that it's going by natural language description instead of a mathematical definition. So it's still ahead of the state of the art in program synthesis, as I saw in a conference a couple of years ago. So yeah, and I think it's right. I can run this real quick. Yeah, it has. No, it has not randomized the array, has it? To test this, I can just copy and paste this a couple more times. So it is randomizing the array, yes. So that worked. And what is going on here? Oh, I guess these were the previous 10 programs. Let's take a look at them. So the first one was just using, so this was for sorting the array. And this, I think this is going to sort the array backwards because it's A minus B. I'm not sure. Oh, but this is a whole solution. So this whole thing is one solution. But it's just the same thing over and over. Yeah, it's a technical preview. I don't expect things to be too polished. Some of them are the same, some of them are missing parts and are not even grammatically correct, but that's okay. Then there is this, gets it right, supposedly. This is not sorting an array, it's mapping with the squares of the numbers, so it's just, it's like a random walk on Stack Overflow. Oh, this is an actual implementation of a sorting algorithm? Is it? Is it really? What does this do? Yes, this is insertion sort, where you find the minimum element in the array, you put it in the first position, and then you go to the rest of the array and do it again. It's not a particularly efficient algorithm, but it is a sorting algorithm, and it didn't just use a library, it came up with the algorithm, so that's nice. Some of them are just different syntax for the same idea. I guess that makes sense. And some of them are just like a random walk on Stack Overflow. It doesn't make any sense, but this is not ranked too highly anyway. So there is that. So how about something more interesting? Something that is not bread and butter from synthesis. How about some DOM manipulation? So let's say that I am doing maybe I have an input and I will do document.querySelector input. Okay, that is what I would have written. And then it's suggesting a next line that is output, which I guess makes sense, input and output. But get element by ID output doesn't really make sense in this context, I don't think. Oh, but this was get element by ID. It was not query selector. Okay. So let's say that set the input value to the value of the button. No, let's do something else. So let's, so there is something and it's not trivial. When you're doing DOM manipulation, we'll get there. I'm going to start with something trivial. So I'll write some comment here like detect or find input value. That is trivial. Should be able to do that. There you go. That's how you do it. So this is, I already find this kind of helpful for, it may be helpful for beginners who don't know the language. The problem is if it gives you a wrong line, then it may be hard to tell that the line is wrong. So maybe it is even worse for beginners because it would give incorrect lines. I don't know. I have been involved in teaching, and that's why I'm interested in this kind of thing. Maybe we can try a language that I don't know, and I'll try to write a short program in Rust or Elixir, and then we I'm not sure that Copilot is even trained on these languages, but these are languages I don't know, so if I can write a short program with Copilot, then it could be kind of cool. So that is trivial. Okay, find the input value is kind of trivial. Let's do something that is not trivial, which is to detect whether the input has changed. And that's something you can do with the DOM, because when you have anything selected, oh, it needs to be a form input. So let me go to MDN input. which is something you may not know, but there is something you can do to detect the original value of a field. So if I have a field like this one, then I can always query the value, which is empty. But if I type something in, then the value is no longer empty. But I can always say default value, and the default value was whatever was in the text of the HTML. And in this case, there is no value equals here to initialize that field. So if you look at value and default value, you can tell whether the field has been changed. So let's say detect whether input is empty. Okay, we'll start there. The tricky thing about being empty is that what if you just have spaces? If you have a bunch of spaces here, then I would say that this thing is empty. And if you just say value equals empty, it will be false because the value is actually a string with some spaces. So you have to do something like trim equals to empty, and that is true because the thing is effectively empty. So let's see what Copilot is going to give me. It is giving me the naive implementation. But what if I try to go to the next version? So how do I tell? Yeah, I can go here to open Copilot. Yeah, and right next to the naive solution there is the, what I would say, correct solution. And it's even suggesting please enter a value, so that's nice. And this is doing like null and undefined and length equals 0. Yeah. What is this? I mean, what does this even say? Okay, it's in Chinese and it means use. Check number. The best way to check the number is to use check it if the value is not a number. That is not even syntactically correct, is it? I mean, back quote, back quote, back quote, that is markdown. It's not even JavaScript. So I wonder what's happening here. Maybe what GitHub is trying to do is to it has been trained on markdown that contains JavaScript snippets. And I think that training for that is actually a smart idea because usually in the markdown there will be some description of what's going on in the code, and the description is right next to the content. So training with markdown could be smart, especially if you train with tutorials and books that exist on GitHub. So that could be kind of nice. But the issue with that is that if you don't do it right, you come up with things like this that are not JavaScript, they are markdown. But I'm going down really low on the list of suggestions, so it's kind of expected that the suggestions will be gibberish. And so let's go back to detect whether input has been modified. And then it doesn't suggest anything. Okay, so check validity is not for modification. Check validity is something that will trigger the browser to do. So if you have something like validations like required, min length, and max length, when you call check validity, it's a function, it will check whether all the requirements are met. And it seems like I have 4 spaces here, so that meets the specification. But if I say that I only have 3 characters here, then check validity will return false. So this is not something that makes sense. And I guess a beginner would be able to tell just by looking at the name. Check validity is not really about modification, but it's one of those cases where a beginner could be thrown off by this. But let's see if there are other suggestions. So this one is completely off mark. Okay. This one is completely off mark. What this is doing is checking for inputs, and then if you have a certain value, it is toggling a class. Nothing like what we need. Then there is a snippet here with a lot of DOM functions, and some of them just repeated. This doesn't make any sense. This is similar to the first one, but changing a background color. This is using check validity. Yeah, there is nothing like this. And the way you would do it is simple. You would say input dot value is equal to input dot default value. If that holds, then it means that you have not modified. Yes, in my case here I have to say $0, but that is because the field has been modified. But if I erase the value, then it has not been modified. So doing this check is smarter, because even if the person types something and then removes that, you still get the right answer. Okay, so I guess the score is like 2 or 3 in favor of GitHub Copilot and 1 against. And that's a relatively straightforward thing. It's not even too much out there. How about we try an algorithm that is not as simple as sorting an array? So how about we try an algorithm to find differences between two arrays? So if I have something like const a equals 1, 2, and 3, and b equals 2, 3, and 4, find the elements that are common between these arrays. Okay. Oh, yeah, that one. Let's see. So C is a filter such that, okay, yeah, so that is working. It's filtering A such that the element is in B. Okay, and it did not implement the algorithm. It used library functions, but there is no library function to do exactly this. So it combined the library functions the correct way. Find the elements that are different in the two arrays. And it did the right thing. It found the opposite. I kind of like this. I think it's working okay. I wonder what languages I can use this in. Let's see the docs. I didn't really read the docs. I just skimmed over some opinions on the internet, but it seems to work with TypeScript, Go, Python, and Ruby. Speak all the languages you love. Okay. It understands Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, Ruby, and Go particularly well, but it understands dozens of languages and can help you find your way around almost anything. That is ambitious. So how about we throw a relatively not popular language, but it is still kind of popular, and then we'll go to a really, really unpopular language. So let's go with Lua for the relatively popular. Let's see what it does with Lua. So if I change this to Lua, now we're gonna try the same thing. We're gonna try something that sorts the array. So sort the array. Okay, that is a correct implementation. Or is it? I don't really remember if sort works like that. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. Cannot just call it you have to say table.sort. Oh, and you don't assign the result. It mutates the table in place. Well, but again, I was using incorrect language for this. So let's try sort the table. No, same answer. Let's try something else. Local a find duplicates. Okay, it's doing something. Okay. So it is traversing the table twice, and if it's checking if the values are the same and the indices are different, it got it right. Then print or whatever, you found your duplicates. Yeah, you found your duplicates. So this is the correct implementation. I even think that in Lua there is no library function to use here. So I think that this really is a correct implementation. It could be smarter. I think that the way this reads, it will print the duplicates twice. I think it will print the duplicates 4 times because it's printing V and V2 and they are duplicates, so it will print the thing twice, but also it's going over the whole table twice, or not twice. It's going to it's going through the whole table twice and nested. So it will find 1 and 1, and then on the next round it will find 1 and 1, if you know what I mean. So yeah, we can try this program real quick. Yeah, so it printed the duplicates twice, but that's okay. It did relatively well, I think. I'm trying to remember something that tripped me up in Lua. So copy file, copy file, copy file, copy file. Okay, let's see the next suggestions. I can already tell that this is slower, but it came up with something. That's lovely. Okay. So what if I already have a file? Let's do that. So my file is equal to a search. Oh, look at that! It suggested the way to open a file for writing, but that's okay. I will open it for reading, and I will do a search around the thing. This line is this line of code is actually a line of code that I would like. This is the line that reads from the file, but it reads the whole file because of this flag. So it's not really the line, it's the contents of the file. My file contents. One thing that it seems to not get wrong is the association between my file here and there. It seems to be smart enough to connect these two. And I guess that this is, I don't know how this works, but I guess it would be smart to not only train this based on lines of code you see out there, but also on the nature of the language. So it could be nice to teach the AI the syntax of the language and then binding rules of the language, so you can tell that these two variables occur not by coincidence in a row like that. Let's see what it suggests next. It's suggesting to print, to close, that is necessary, and then suggesting this. I think it's again picking things up from Markdown. duplicates hidden, so that's the only thing it knows how to do. It's okay, I guess it did its job. It printed the contents of a file. But it didn't really tell me how to copy a file. So maybe if I continue, copy my file contents to clipboard. I don't think you can do that in Lua. Yeah. No, you cannot copy to clipboard in Lua, not in a program agnostic way. Lua is an embedded language. It's embedded in some other piece of software like OBS or Reaper. So you cannot just copy to clipboard because the default Lua thing doesn't even know about the clipboard. Yeah, so this is trying to write to a file called clipboard. This is using set clipboard, which is probably something that exists in some specific program. This is just some crazy stuff. Okay, so it did relatively well with Lua. I'm not gonna blame it. It did relatively well. Now let's move on to a really esoteric language. But a language that I have the language mode installed already, because otherwise I would need to install other extensions and then I know that it will not do well. Also a language in which I can actually test the outputs. So ideally a language that I have installed on my computer. In a language that I know. Let's start with a language that I know and then we'll go to another language that I don't know. And we'll see how it fares. So let's start with a language that I know from here. That I know, but that's esoteric. You know what? I couldn't find any that would satisfy that. So how about we try Racket? I used to write Racket for a couple of years. I know Racket relatively well, but I need to install an extension for Copilot to support. So Racket support for Visual Studio Code. This is the most used one. Let's go with that one. And why does it say preview? Does it say that for every extension? No. I don't know, but in any case we should be able to say Racket now, and it's in Racket mode. And does Copilot do anything useful in Racket? Let's see. I'll define a list and then let's say sort a list of numbers. Okay, it is not using any library function. This is getting exciting. It's gonna try to implement this. If empty numbers, correct. Otherwise, sort list with the rest of the numbers, recurse. This is not syntactically correct. It's not syntactically correct and it's not logically correct either. So the way a conditional works in Racket is you give it a condition and then you give it the then clause and the else clause. The problem with these lines is that there is an extra one here, and another problem with these lines is that it's appending it's appending something that is the result of calling sort, but sort is not even defined, so maybe it's something that comes with the language, but I don't think it comes with the language. I don't think that sort comes with the language. Maybe list sort of or something. I can check this real quick. Docs and then sort. Okay, so I was wrong. Sort is a function that comes with the language, but then it started implementing the function instead of using the library function, and then it used the library function and it used it completely wrong. I mean, the way you would do this is to maybe define an intermediate variable that would be the yeah, I guess we would do some kind of insertion sort. So we would say minimum is not the first of numbers. This is the first element. I want the minimum element. So we would need to do. Baby is not too happy with GitHub Copilot. So you don't want the first of the numbers. You want the minimal number. So I guess there is a function called min, and we would say numbers like that. At least it's getting all the parentheses right, it seems, which is kind of non-trivial in Racket. So you would do minimum like that, and then you would have to remove the minimum from the list of numbers and then recurse. So yeah, it got it very wrong. Let's try something else. Define a equals to a list of numbers, and then reverse a list. There you go. That is correct. Reverse is a function that you can use in Racket, I suppose. We can check. There you go. It is a correct implementation. It's using a library function, but it got the right library function. So now, how about we try... I will uninstall this. How about we try a language that is popular, but I don't know how to write. Especially one that I can run. So I'm thinking about Python here. Let's go to Python mode. Do you want to install the recommended extensions? Would they be necessary? Let's suppose that these extensions are not, or maybe just install them, whatever. I'll install this same way I installed the extension for Racket. Though it doesn't seem to be so lightweight, this one. It's taking its time to install. Meanwhile, let's do our usual thing. So I don't even know how to write a comment. So how to write a comment in Python. Okay, Python extension is now installed. Some features might not be available until notebook, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Would you like to reload the window? And there was some other question, but the question went away because I reloaded the window. But I suppose this is going to just pick up. Okay, so no Python. This was the message. You need to select a Python interpreter to enable features such as IntelliSense, linting, and debugging. Okay, I will use the latest, I suppose. This one. Yeah, it seems like it picked it up. So let's see how to write a comment in the code to explain what each line does. Suggestions? No. How do you write a comment in Python? Well, I know the keyboard shortcut, so yeah, that's how you do a comment in Python. And how about we try to read a file? This is something that a beginner would do. Write a file. No, I want suggestions. Accept solution main.py. No. Read a file line by line. Read the whole file at once. It promised that it would be good with Python, right? Yes, it is the first language that is mentioned here. Read the whole file at once. I guess that is correct. What are the other options? This one is forgetting to close the file. Then there are these other ones that are just like comments. It doesn't really make sense. So let's pick this one. Read a whole file at once. Reverse the lines in the file. No. Let's go to suggestions. Oh, but the problem is that it printed. So how do I define a variable? So let's see. Define a variable to hold the contents of the file. Exactly. Okay, so it's going to open, but it never defined a variable to hold the contents of the file. Read lines. Okay. Contents. I'll take this one. So it seems like kind of recreated what I had, but this time it is doing the read by lines and then reverse the lines. Lines.reverse. And sort the lines lexicographically. Lexicographically. I just ignored the lexicographically altogether. That's okay. Maybe some other solution will do it lexicographically. And I am even assuming something like a separator that will be the separator of the lexicographical thing. So nope, just sort, completely blind to the lexicographical sourcing. Let's see, parse a CSV file. Import CSV. And what else? No suggestions? Help me out. Oh no. How do I use this? I guess to use the documentation is to cheat. I need my Copilot to help me. Something else I could have gone with? Import CSV with open blah blah blah. CSV reader file for row in reader print. And this is reading the CSV as a binary. Doesn't really make sense. But this one seems to make more sense. And this one is even better, I think, because it is reading and printing and closing the file later. So let's go with this one. Let's see if this one actually works. So I'll put this on my downloads folder or whatever. And I'll call this test.py. And is there a CSV mode? No. So I'll just write a CSV here. And I need to give it a specific name, test.csv. There you go. It did the right thing. So I was able to write a short Python program, but I don't know any Python, so yay, Copilot. Let's see what else there is going on here. Okay, so this is very ambitious. It is saying that you can do things like using APIs and everything. So let's try something like that. Make an HTTP request to the server and print out the response. Suggestions? Nothing? Okay, trying again and get the response back. Then print out the response. Nothing. Can I tell Copilot? Send feedback, toggle on off, update, open Copilot. Okay. URL lib2, URL open, print response read, import requests. Most of these are going with requests. We have 3 of them, so let's see. I'll go with this one. It's complaining about requests. Import requests could not be resolved, so probably this is a library that I don't have installed. There you go, I don't have the library, but that's okay. How about we try this on a language that I know? So let's go back to JavaScript. And let me uninstall this extension. I don't want to have it. Pylance and Python. Uninstalling all of these. Do I have something else I need to uninstall? I don't even know why it suggested Jupyter notebooks. I'm not interested. Let's reload this. Yeah, those are my extensions. No Python things there. So I was saying that I was gonna try to do something in JavaScript. So I guess I'll call this like whatever JS, and in here make an HTTP request to whatever.com and return the response. Exactly, you know me. This is all commented out. This is perfect. Okay, this is using an old library, but that's okay. I think it would be correct to use the library this way. This is very old code, and if I accept the solution, it puts this whole part here that doesn't really belong. So I'll come back and try again. This would work in the browser, but it doesn't know, right, that I would be running this in Node. I didn't even tell you all that I was running this. I was going to run this in Node. So seems like this could be acceptable. Oh, come on. So this is more acceptable. It's using Node.js, but it's using the standard libraries, and it again has this bunch of stuff at the end. No, this is terrible. Make an HTTP request in Node.js. Okay, this is using just Node.js. This is using a library, but this library is deprecated. It's just pasting whatever license from whatever project. It's like programming with a blender. Just whatever it finds, it spits back at you. But this is correct. But I was expecting that it would find something more modern. I guess it's hard to tell. I mean, even for experienced programmers, it's sometimes hard to tell. This is all using requests, which I guess makes sense. Requests is a lot more popular than the more modern alternatives. Okay, so that didn't really go very well. let's see if they can do something like this. Determine whether outtest exactly this. And it's in TypeScript, so it's supposed to work, right? So let's try exactly this. Determine whether this sentiment is positive, negative. No, I want exactly the same text. Of text is positive. Next line. Use a web service. Next line, and then bam, suggestions. Let's see. It's using here. It's using textprocessing.com. I don't know what that is. Is that something that exists? Seems to be. There seems to be an API behind it. No. Well, maybe there is. I don't know. And this is browser stuff, and this is not ideal. Fetch knows how to put the right header given the right body, but that's okay. Yeah, that's acceptable. Let's see what we have here. A bunch of comments. Then get sentiment using this API. Is this something that exists? Discover the tweetest sentiment for a product or brand. It is something that exists. And this is using jQuery, but there is nowhere in here where it says that it's using jQuery. So a beginner would be like, but maybe this is not for beginners, I don't know. And I don't know how to use the .ajax function in jQuery, so I cannot really tell if this is correct, but I assume it is. There is, again, just a bunch of junk. It's repeating itself. Oh, so this is more like it. It's starting to talk about textprocessing.com. There is a package called sentiment. Is there? AFINN based sentiment analysis for Node.js. Okay, this is a library that exists and that does the thing. So how about we take this line? Let's accept this solution. And again, a beginner wouldn't know to do this, but I do, so I will install this library. And then, so this is just exporting a module, but instead I want to call this with some text. So maybe call module exports with a string. Suggestions? Okay. That example was actually good. Returns a float. Accept this solution. Need to comment it out. And I should be able to run whatever JS. Cannot read property score of undefined. So it is not using the library correctly because score is undefined. Also, it's using old syntax. That's okay. How do you use this library? Oh, you need to instantiate it. So we would need to do something like this, I suppose. It's kind of weird to do it like this, so I'll do it like this. There you go. And now sentiment is not a function, that's okay. Oh, you need to register language analyze, so this was way off the mark. It's not how you use this library. And it wasn't using a web service. So let's try this again. And it should be able to synthesize its example on the homepage, I suppose. Okay, I think I have my answer as to will this replace human programmers in the future. But it's not bad. Again, it's trying to use the library, but it's using it all wrong. And then some markdown, some kind of junk. I think that for a beginner, it may be harder to make sense of the junk than to try to look up documentation and Stack Overflow and whatnot. I think that for a beginner, it will do more harm than good. This is looking more modern. It's using promises. It's using the request library, which is not exactly modern, and it's using a polyfill for promise, which is also not ideal, but that's okay. It's not too bad. I just realized that my sound was super quiet. This should be better. Bunch of comments. Yeah, it couldn't come up with the example on the homepage. What else does it say here? You can cycle through alternative suggestions, choose which to accept or reject, and manually edit suggested code. Okay. So let's try something else, like not a HTTP request this time. Get a random RGB color. Accept solution. Author is Stephen Morley. That's not my name. I'm not Stephen Morley. Get random color. Oh, okay, that gets a random color. But it also gives me a bunch of things. But I was trying this out. Okay, so this is not bad actually. Yeah, it's doing the get full year, get month plus 1. Yeah, this is not terrible. But I was doing this because I wanted to edit the suggestions. So let's do that. Get a random RGB color, get random color. This one, so I can edit here. Oh, you cannot edit here. What you can do is probably accept the suggestion and edit, and then that will feed the next suggestions. Let's see what else. More than autocomplete. It's powered by Codex, the new AI system created by OpenAI. What is OpenAI anyway? What is this about? Okay, it's a development company for artificial intelligence. More power to them. And Copilot understands significantly more context than most code assistants. So whether it's a docstring, comment function name, or the code itself, GitHub Copilot uses the context you provided and synthesizes code to match. Together with OpenAI, we are designing GitHub Copilot to get smarter at producing safe and effective code as developers use it. Okay. Skip the docs and stop searching for examples. That is very ambitious. Copilot helps you stay focused right in your editor. Convert comments to code. Write a comment describing the logic you want and let Copilot assemble the code for you. Autofill for repetitive code. Okay. Tests without the toil. Alternatives. Yeah, we tried some of these and they are not perfect. They don't really work all that well, but we didn't give it a lot of context. I just had a single line with a English description of what I wanted. So maybe that's not ideal. So next we are going to open a project. The person behind the thing says that using GitHub Copilot is like hiring an interpreter, which I guess it kind of is. It wasn't too bad on the Python examples. Okay, so next we are going to try this on a real code base. Let's save and close this. I will delete the file so I don't forget it there. Node modules, whatever's my own picture. Let's open the project we have been working on the previous streams, Notestrator. I'm not sure I have the latest version here. I don't think I have. I think I used the Windows machine last time. Oh, but it was for a different project. That's okay. Is there something related to Copilot? No, it seems like Visual Studio Code released a new version while I'm streaming. So let's try to give Copilot the hard problems that I don't know how to resolve. So this has a lot of context here. Now it's not just a single line of English description of what I want Copilot to do. And I have this problem. This is an Electron app. I have been working on this on previous streams. I can quickly show you what this app does. It is a way for you to take notes on top of your computer screen, which is useful for things like streaming. So I can draw things on top of my screen. And I have some issues that I really don't know how to solve. And by the way, the thing I have been working on last was this menu, and of course it's not finished, but I am now getting back to it, and I think it's looking good. I think we are doing a good job of styling this. The keyboard shortcuts are okay. This is also nice. Yeah, it's kind of looking nice. I think this will be a big hit in the future when I release it. So yeah, one of the issues I have is that on Windows, the drawing window is not transparent. I am able to draw on top of my screen, and the way it works, it's an Electron app. It puts an Electron window, a browser window, that is transparent and occupies the whole screen, so I can draw whatever. But on Windows, it looks like a blank screen, and I cannot even draw on top of it. So can Copilot help me out here? I have absolutely no context. I didn't give any context of what is exactly that breaks. So when you put minimizable, it turns the window white. That's why these two are commented this way. And then there are all these things that has exactly the same comment, breaks in Windows. I'm not sure if this is like synthesizing based on my code. Yeah, but this is nothing like a solution for this. Or maybe it is, and I cannot really tell. It's hard to tell if the solution is correct because I'm not even sure what the solution will be. And it's doing some things like loading a window from an Express server. It's mixing Electron code with Express code the way that I mix in the application. For other reasons, I have some Express code below. Oh, that's too bad. It seems like Copilot cannot come up with a magic answer for me. Okay. Okay. Let us continue styling the menu. That's what I was gonna do if I wasn't playing with Copilot. So let's continue styling the menu. We have already this top bar, this part, the color selector, the stroke width selector, and the tool selector. This is like a marker. And I guess we'll continue. We'll go to draw versus click through, and we'll see how much Copilot can help me do that. First, we have to find where that even is. It's right here. draw versus click through. So let's put a separator. Oh, it synthesized the right thing. I was about to paste the thing here. Yeah, got it right. Based on, I guess, my clipboard. So it's nothing too fancy, but it got it right. So how do I accept the solution? That way. All right. So now I have a separator. Draw versus click through. And now we need to think about how we want to style this. And I don't think that Copilot can help me much with how we're going to style this. Well, I have an idea. I'm not sure it is great of how I want to style this, but I guess it would be nice to have some icons, and maybe we would have. I'm not even sure how to communicate the language here. So let me first explain what this feature does. You are in drawing mode, and then you switch to click through mode, and you can interact with the app behind your drawing. That's useful if you have something like a diagram here, and you're coding the diagram, and you want to refer to the diagram, but you want to interact with the application behind the drawing. Then I'm back into drawing mode. So that's what this feature is. Now, if I just come here, it will suggest a div, which is what I wanted. And next, it's going to suggest this bit is very particular to the way that I write code. So Copilot did the right thing. Can it figure out the next part? This is very exciting, actually. Getting this part right is very particular because I came up with this framework. Angelo says, hi Angelo, nice to have you here. How much until you were able to use Copilot? I joined the waiting list, but still nothing. So I signed up for the wait list like 2 days ago or something. And I was invited this morning, I guess. So it took me about 2 days, but I don't know how I got invited or why. I mean, I got an email saying that I was invited by someone who I don't know. It's probably the manager at GitHub who is doing this technical preview, who's managing this, and I don't know why I got an invitation. If I were to guess, I'm probably gonna say it was random. So good luck. Maybe you will be invited soon. I don't think that I can invite you. I can check for this, but I don't think I can invite you. I don't think it's like Facebook in the early days, but if I can invite you, I will. And if there's something that you want for me to test, if you are interested in testing one particular thing, just tell me and I will do it. Let me go to the GitHub Copilot. And your Electron app is looking awesome, by the way. Thank you. Sign up, but I'm already signed up. Yeah, I don't think I can invite you. Yeah, so suggestions for how to continue here. Okay, now it's just suggesting code that I wrote. This is just stuff that I wrote before. Yeah, no, I don't want a fancy copy and paster. Angela says, that's weird. Well, I used an account with only private repositories. It's been almost 2 weeks, still no response. I didn't know that Copilot was a thing for 2 weeks. I only noticed it on, I guess, Hacker News or something like 2 or 3 days ago, and then I clicked on the link and signed up for the wait list. But I don't think that it's like a queue. I don't think that people will be lining up and the people who sign up first will be invited first. I guess it will be random because otherwise it would be biased towards early adopters, people who are on top of the news like you are, instead of people like me who are just like scrambling around. So this is also code that I wrote. It's again suggesting parts of my own code base. It's just a fancy copy and paste. Okay, so this is what I would write next. Okay, got it right. And I need to close this div. And ideally, I would do this with icons that would represent the click-through ability, the fact that you can click through this. And ideally, I would use icon for this, and I'm using Font Awesome as my as my icon library because it has one icon that I need. That's so unfortunate. I need to use this because of one icon, but this icon, the highlighter icon, was an icon that I couldn't find in any of my favorite icon libraries, so I went with one of my least favorites, which is Font Awesome. But it is what it is. So let's see if I can find an icon. Where is, yeah, all these icons. I have to use the free icons, not because I'm cheap, I am, but also because this is an open source app. So I don't think that the paid version would be covered for open source, I don't think. I don't know. But let's see, click. So maybe I could use a mouse. That's not too bad. The Font Awesome website does a thing I hate where you command click on something and it doesn't work because it captures the click and does whatever fancy thing it wants to do. Mouse, pointer. I could go with pointer as well. Drawing. No. Note. Now this is less about Copilot and more about Notestrator, I guess, because that's what I have been doing in my streams when I have been working on Notestrator. So how about I have, come on, go there. How about I have two icons? One is a cursor or a mouse. I guess a cursor works better. So I'll have, can I move these dots? No. Okay, so I'll have a cursor versus a pen of some sort. And I'm not sure I want to use the same pen as I have used. By the way, Angelo, do you have an idea of how to represent this idea that I'm drawing versus interacting with the application underneath? Maybe I could have a window to represent this. And I don't want to necessarily use the same icon because it could be confusing. Yeah, I guess a window could work. A drawing canvas could work. Window restore, window minimize, window maximize. Guess this icon is kind of okay. It represents the idea of these overlapping windows. Canvas. Chisel. That's not too good. In one of my favorite icon libraries, there is something that I could use, but I don't want to mix the libraries because they have different languages and whatnot. But so if there is an icon like these, it could be nice. No, these. Angela says, wait, which kind of icon are you looking for? Something like layers? When I can't find anything, I just improvise something in Figma. I guess I can do that. Could come up with an icon. But the intent here, I'm not even sure that an icon will be able to represent this. That's why I'm going back and forth. So now we are not talking about Copilot at all. We are talking about design. But I'm not even sure I can communicate this idea of being able to draw versus click through or interact with the underlying application. So maybe icons are not the ideal solution here. Maybe we will have something like drawing and a checkbox on the side. And then I guess it could be nice to just have a checkbox. And if the checkbox is enabled, we are in drawing mode. And if the checkbox is disabled, you are not in the drawing mode. Let's try something like that. Yeah, Angela suggests a checkbox maybe. Yeah, I guess that's going to be the way to go. Let's start with that. I'll say like drawing. And then I want it to be checked to begin with. And can Copilot come up with what I want, which is to check whether the checkbox is checked. To check whether the checkbox is checked. So let's see what Copilot does. Bunch of crap. Just a huge load of crap. But it did get the right answer. It just put a lot of crap after the answer. Child nodes checked? No. It got the right answer. I'm gonna give it that. It got the right answer. But I couldn't just accept, otherwise it would put that bunch of junk here. Like this. And this is something very particular about the way I am writing this application. I wonder if it throws off Copilot. Okay, so something you need to know is that I'm writing my application with JavaScript, of course, because it's Electron, but then I nest HTML, and in there I nest the client-side JavaScript, and it's a whole thing about the style I'm writing this, and I have a whole philosophy about this, and I'm going to say more about this in the future, in future streams probably, but there's a whole philosophical arc to this story. But the interesting question here is, now the JavaScript, the client-side JavaScript, is nested in JavaScript code that generates HTML that in turn has some JavaScript in there. Thus, this nesting threw off Copilot. No, it seems to get it right. And this time it even suggested something that makes more sense. Maybe because I had that before and I deleted it. So it is probably picking up the idea that I'm writing some JavaScript nested in HTML, nested in JavaScript. So this is sending an event called ignore mouse events to the main process in Electron. And when the thing is checked, it will send a true, and when the thing is not checked, it will send false. And I think that it will serialize that into a string, or maybe it doesn't serialize to a string, it serializes to JSON, in which case it will have the true as a boolean. I don't know, we'll have to maybe revisit this. We'll see. But we can already test this out. So I am drawing. I click on drawing, and I'm still drawing. So I don't think that this is doing the right thing. Let's see. Let me go to my ignore mouse events, and let's console log ignore mouse events. That's what I was gonna do. Copilot got it right. Oh, so I'm not even receiving the event? Oh, because this is a radio, not a checkbox. Angelo says, I was also thinking of two icons, one icon being a window and the other being a pen. When state toggles, one of them would look over the top of the other. Yeah, I could have two icons, one being a pen and another being a window. And it would kind of go nice with the rest of the interface, which is all icons. And again, now this works, right? False. True. And it is Boolean. All right, so it's serializing to something like JSON, so I can say something like this. But I'm going this direction of the checkbox, and you're saying that the icons could work, and I kind of like the way the icons would look. It could be kind of confusing the first time you use the app to figure out what the icons mean, or I could have icons and text, but that I don't want to do. And you already kind of have to play with the rest of the application to find what the different tools do. Yeah, so now I'm able to interact with the app behind. So the drawing thing is working. So it seems like you like the icons. Let's see. That would be the only way to provide some visual feedback, switching the icon depending on the state. But a checkbox is less of a headache to implement, I think. I don't think it is more or less of a headache. I think it's about the same, because if I were to have a checkbox, I would style it according to the rest of the application instead of just using the default checkbox. And that's why you don't actually see a checkbox here, because it's hidden, because I would style it. So that said, I think it's fine for us to have two icons. So we'll have this icon to represent it goes through, or maybe a window to say that it goes through, and some sort of pen. Ideally not the same pen we have already used, because that could be even more confusing. Or maybe we could treat that as another tool in terms of presentation, but it's not really. It's a different mode of operation. So we don't want to use this one, which is like the drawing pen. Probably we don't want that. So maybe we want something like this. That means like you are drawing. Versus, so I kind of like the way that they are both rectangles or squares. So you would switch from this window mode to the drawing mode. Yeah, I guess I will use these icons. With that, I think I need to revert most of my changes actually, because I'm not using a checkbox. I'm going to use radio buttons. So I'll revert my changes, and I will put this icon, download SVG, copy HTML. I'll put this as the drawing icon and this as the window click through stuff. Yeah. I think that people will be able to pick this up. At least after they try, I think they will be able to pick it up. Now we need to do some intelligent copying and pasting. So maybe Copilot will help us here. we already have this notion of radio buttons with icons and their keyboard shortcuts, and they are all styled nicely. So can Copilot pick up some of these styles as I'm going to copy and paste them? Let's see. So here I have the pen and highlighter and eraser. So I will need a div. Just like what I have there. Okay, so maybe Copilot is going to suggest that I paste. Yeah, it's not doing anything. Is it going over the internet? I mean, it must be going to the internet, right? Because it is based on this artificial intelligence. It's not running on my computer. It suggested that I copy and pasted the another part of the code base that actually does the same. So it's kind of okay that it suggested that, but I'm not gonna take its suggestion. Oh, and I also need to put in the separator here. Again, it suggested the right thing. And then I need to move down, and yeah, these styles are necessary for the keyboard shortcut. So on my label, I'll paste this. Is Copilot going to suggest a paste? Kind of. Yeah, it suggested a paste, but it also suggested a bunch of things. And I also need the same thing here. I will dry this up later. And then I will need some divs with... Oh, so the div goes around the icon. So I have the structure that is an input, and then a div around the icon. And then I will do my shortcut. My shortcut will be the letter Z for this one, and it just suggested some person's name. That is brilliant. Awesome job, GitHub. And what will be the keyboard shortcut for this? It will be X. So how does that look? Doesn't look great. Doesn't look too hot. We'll have to do some changes. We probably want it to sit over here, and we probably want these icons to be smaller because they are occupying too much of the space. And this actually kind of seems out of the space. It seems a little too maybe it's just too big, but it seems a little too much to the left. We need to make the keyboard shortcuts work and whatnot. So there is still a lot of work to do, but I want to wrap this up. So I'm going to commit what I have, which seems to be kind of okay. Thank you, GitHub Copilot, for all the help. And if you're interested, you can go to my GitHub to see this app. And I'm working on this app every day of the week at 5:30 UTC. And I'm going to work on this tomorrow, Friday. I'm going to continue working on styling this menu. And I guess I will just leave GitHub Copilot enabled. So tomorrow we'll kind of continue this test, and we'll see how it works on a real world application. And so far, it seems like the only thing that Copilot actually did right when writing a Notestrator for now is to suggest copy and pasting other parts of the code base that I actually want to copy and paste. So it kind of got the right answer, but it's not awesome. But now for a conclusion, I am really impressed. I mean, it is not ready, of course. It's a technical preview, and there are all the concerns with licensing and the legality of even doing this. But I mean, when it's copy and pasting my own code from my own code base, it's kind of okay. And if it's more about like the thing that I would go to Stack Overflow and copy and paste from there, if you know what I mean, especially in a new language, and I just want to get some quick script out the door, and Copilot can help me out. It can do the Stack Overflow search for me, and it's even smarter because it's going to the whole GitHub code base instead of, I mean, every code base on GitHub, it's instead of just some Stack Overflow that I find on Google. So I'm positive about this. I mean, there is a lot of backlash on the internet, it seems, but I'm positive about it. I liked the experience. I am going to leave this on tomorrow and we'll see. I may even leave this on my day job and we'll see. It's all open source and GPL, the work that I do for a living. So even if the licenses don't match nicely, I think it will be okay. Yeah, so I will report back in the future. And thank you all for coming here, for subscribing to my channel, for supporting me on PayPal and Patreon. I hope you liked this. If you have more questions about Copilot, maybe you are not invited to the technical preview yet and you want me to test something in particular, then I can do that. Just hit me up on all the regular channels. You can go to my website and you will find every way you can get in touch, and I can test things out for you. And yeah, thank you all for being here. I see you on the next one. Bye.